Our world divides us, yet we are connected more than ever through technology. Disasters strike and millions are aware within minutes. Action is taken across the world. We are unified. We make change. Something happens, we react.
Welcome back to React News. The last time we were here, we talked about genocide and 1 Million Bones, a movement created to raise awareness about genocide and combat it. However, the fact remains that despite actions like those taken in DC last June, genocide endures, and the world's most recent and most dynamic genocide is occurring as I speak in Syria. What's happening? Since March 2011, the Middle Eastern country of Syria has been gripped by brutal civil war between the forces of President Bashar al-Assad and rebel forces who want freedom and democracy in the country. Since then, as of December 31st, 2013, over 100,000 people have been reported dead, over 11,000 of these children, and nearly 2.5 million have been displaced, currently making Syrians the most displaced of any group of people. With the recent use of chemical weapons by Assad's regime and the torture of civilians, including hundreds of children, the Syrian conflict is largely considered a genocide. Why is it happening? In December of 2010, the Arab Spring began in Tunisia as a backlash to the despotic and oppressive regimes that gripped the Middle East. Within a month, the wave of youth-instigated protests that seek democracy, rights like freedom of speech and press had swept like wildfire across the Middle East and North Africa, engulfing Oman, Yemen, Egypt, Syria, Morocco, and Libya. It has been marked by the most widespread peaceful protests and the most violent massacres the world has recently witnessed. In 2011, in the Syrian city of Daraa, 15 schoolchildren were arrested and reported to have been tortured for marking walls with anti-government graffiti. Unsurprisingly, this sparked a response among civilians, but the protests began peacefully, with people calling for the students' release and greater democracy for the people of Syria. The government, however, responded angrily and opened fire on protesters, killing 4, and again the next day at the victims' funerals. The protesters have demanded that President Assad step down, but he refuses, and from there, the violence that had begun as a spark turned quickly into a bonfire. There are many militant groups fighting Assad's army, including the Free Syrian Army, which tend to be considerably smaller and not as well equipped. Many parts of Syria have been under siege for months, with aid unable to reach them. The Arab Spring has captured the world's attention and taken it by storm. With world powers like the US, Russia, China, and Iran watching closely, and with the current ongoing UN intervention through Geneva II, we hope for a peaceful solution soon. What are we doing? We all know that the United States recently proposed military intervention within Syria to be met by one of the greatest peaceful and political uprisings by American citizens in recent years. It seems that after Vietnam, Korea, Grenada, Angola, Iraq, and Afghanistan, we finally learned our lesson. Ambassadors have been involved in the movement for peace in Syria as well. I had the chance to speak to Syrian advocates at the National Mall for 1 Million Bones last year, and ambassadors helped to lead the anti-war on Syria protest with a local organization called Westpac this past September when President Obama called for action. The crisis may have been averted in the States, but the tragedy continues in Syria. And now, we are so excited to have had an ambassador provide us with a first-hand account. Global Ambassador Chris Dagger was recently in Lebanon and had the chance to speak with Syrian refugees in Bekaa Valley. Let's see.
Okay.
No, there's no electricity.
So كم واحد عايش هون؟
هون عندي أنا 17.
17 people living in this camp.
كله baby.
Yeah. So this is a heating stove. وعندكم بتدفوا؟
والله بنلم نايله حطب هذاك شفتوا؟
So they okay. So they have a heating stove.
And أحذية عتيقة.
Oh yeah.
نايله شراحي من هذاك لمه من السهل عرفت علي؟ نحره.
So they burn anything.
You've just seen proof that these people need our help. Earlier this week, I had the chance to speak to Chris Dagger, who got us this footage in Lebanon. Let's take a look. Chris.
Hi,
Thank you for joining me today.
not a problem.
So I just have a few questions for you. Why were you in Lebanon, and what brought you to Bekaa Valley?
I was in Lebanon for Christmas, celebrating with family, and the day before Christmas Eve, so the 23rd, I got the idea to see the Syrian refugees at one of the encampments. So I asked my dad, and then the next day, we were in a car with his friend Amin early that morning on the way up to his house in the Bekaa Valley, and we saw one of the camps.
And what did you find there, and did it defy your expectations in any way?
Well, actually, my brother thought we were going to get killed, but it did defy my expectations. It was a lot worse than what I had expected. I found there just horrifying. It was just horrifying. I can't really describe it fully, and I just don't know how to put it into words, really. But the kids there were really so resilient. They were acting like they had been raised there, like they had no problem with it at all. It was really wonderful to see.
Now, what touched you most about the people?
Definitely the kids and how they were so resilient.
Okay. And what did you take away from the experience?
I think I bettered myself from the experience. I really, I saw how much I take for granted, like just everyday things like clean water, a hot meal, a clean bed. All of the kids there, they didn't even have beds. They just slept on the dirt floor. Having like a roof over my head. Most of the roofs of the shacks there were like leaking and things like that, like made of canvas bags. It was horrible.
Now, how can we and our viewers help those people?
I think by, and there was actually an NGO visiting the same camp while I was there. I think by supporting any NGO that, or any organization at all, that supports and aids these refugees, I think that's really the biggest way to help.
So thank you. I know such heavy issues are difficult to talk about, but thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure.